The day before the wedding dawned bright and clear, but for Adana, it felt as though a cloud hung over everything. The doubt planted by her bridesmaids has taken root, growing and festering despite her best efforts to ignore them. As she sat in her childhood bedroom, surrounded by the remnants of her past and the promise of her future, Adana felt torn. She loved Emeka, she was sure of that, but the whispers of her friends echoed in her mind, casting shadows over her happiness. A soft knock on the door pulled her from her thoughts. Come in, she called, forcing a smile onto her face. The door opened to reveal her four bridesmaids, their faces a mixture of concern and determination. Adana smiled, flattered, as she saw the serious expressions they wore. What's wrong? She asked, her heart beginning to race. Is everything okay with the wedding preparations? Ngozi stepped forward, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. Adana, we need to talk to you. It's important. Adana's gaze flicked from one friend to another, taking in their grim expressions. What is it? You are scaring me. Choma took a deep breath before speaking. It's about Emeka. We have proof that he's not who you think he is. Adana felt as though the floor had dropped out from under her. What are you talking about? What proof? Blessing stepped forward, holding out her phone. We didn't want to believe it either, Adana, but, well, see for yourself. With trembling hands, Adana took the phone. The photo on the screen was grainy and dark, but she could make out Emeka's familiar form, locked in what appeared to be an intimate embrace with another person. No, she whispered, her voice barely audible. No, no, this can't be real. Ifoma moved to sit beside her on the bed, wrapping an arm around Adana's shoulders. We are so sorry, sweetie. We know how much you love him, but we couldn't let you marry him without knowing the truth. Adana's mind raced, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. But, but, when was this taken? And where? The bridesmaids exchanged glances before Choma spoke up. It was at his bachelor party. We followed him. We had to know for sure. Adana's head snapped up, her eyes wide with disbelief. You followed him? How could you do that? We are worried about you, Ngozi insisted, her voice pleading. We have all heard the rumors, Adana. We couldn't stand by and watch you make a mistake. Adana stood up, pacing the room as she tried to process this information. Her mind filled with conflicting emotions, anger at her friends for their deceptions, fear that Emeka had betrayed her, and a deep, aching sadness that threatened to overwhelm her. I need to talk to Emeka, she said finally, her voice shaking. I need to hear his side of the story. The bridesmaids exchanged panic glances. This wasn't part of their plan. Adana, no, Blessing said quickly. You can't confront him now. It's the day before your wedding. What if he denies it? What if he talks you into going through with the marriage anyway? Adana turned to face her friend, her eyes flashing with a mixture of anger and determination. I love Emeka, she said firmly. I trust him. There has to be an explanation for this. I am going to hear it from him, not from you. Before any of the bridesmaids could stop her, Adana had grabbed her keys and was heading for the door. They watched helplessly as she disappeared down the stairs, the sound of her car starting moments later. As the sound of Adana's car faded into the distance, the bridesmaids looked at each other, the weight of what they had done finally sinking in. What have we done? Ngozi whispered, her voice heavy with regret. Choma squared her shoulders, her face set in a determined expression. What we had to do, we did what we had to do. It's better she knows now, before it's too late. But as they sat in Adana's room, surrounded by the trappings of the wedding that might never happen. None of them could shake away the feeling that they had just destroyed something beautiful and that the consequences of their actions were only beginning to unfold. Adana's mind was filled with emotions as she drove to Emeka's house. The photo on Blessing's phone kept flashing before her eyes, but she refused to believe it. There had to be an explanation. They just had to be. As she pulled up to Emeka's gated community, she took a deep breath, telling herself for the conversation ahead. The security guard recognized her and waved her through with a smile. Any other day, that small gesture would have warmed her heart. Today, it only added to the surreal feeling that had enveloped her since her friend's revelation. Adana parked her car in the driveway and made her way to the front door. Her hand hovered over the doorbell for a moment before she gathered enough courage to press it. The wait seemed like forever, but finally the door swung open. Emeka stood there, his face lighting up at the sight of her. Adana, my baby. What a lovely surprise. I thought we had agreed not to see each other until the wedding. Bad luck and all that, he said, his voice warm and full of love. The sight of him so happy and unsuspecting made Adana's heart clench. How could she doubt this man who looked at her with such adoration? Emeka, she began, her voice trembling slightly. We need to talk. It's important. Concern immediately flooded Emeka's face. He stepped aside, ushering her into the house. Of course, my love. What's wrong? Is everything okay with the wedding preparations? Adana walked into the living room, her eyes roaming over the familiar space. How many happy evenings had they spent here, planning their future together, and now it all hung in the balance. She turned to face Emeka, taking a deep breath before speaking. Hmm, something, something has come to my attention about your bachelor party. Emeka's brow furrowed in confusion. My bachelor party? What about it? Dana's hand shook as she pulled out her phone, pulling up the damning photo that Blessing had sent her. This, she said, her voice barely above a whisper as she held out the phone. Emeka took the phone, his confusion deepening as he studied the image. Then, to Adana's surprise, he let out a laugh. Oh, Adana, my baby, he said, shaking his head. This is what got you so worried? Adana stared at him, unable to comprehend his reaction. You are laughing? Emeka, what's going on? Emeka's face softened as he looked at her, reaching out to take her hand. My love, my baby, this isn't what you think. The intimate embrace you see, that's my cousin Chidi. He had a bit too much to drink and nearly fell. I was just catching him. Adana blinked, trying to process this information. Your cousin? Emeka nodded. Yes, he flew in from America for the wedding. I wanted it to be a surprise for you. He's going to be one of my groomsmen. Relief washed over Adana like a wave, nearly bringing her to her knees. But as the fear and doubt receded, another emotion took its place: anger. My bridesmaids, she said, her voice tight with suppressed emotion. They followed you. They took this photo. They tried to convince me you were cheating. Emeka's face darkened with anger, but it quickly gave way to concern as he saw the distress on Adana's face. Oh, my love, he said softly, pulling her into his arms. I am so sorry you had to go through that. But why would they do such a thing? Adana shook her head, burying her face in Emeka's chest. I don't know, she whispered. I thought they were my friends. As Emeka held her, murmuring words of comfort and reassurance, Adana's mind raced. The relief of knowing Emeka was innocent was overshadowed by the betrayal of her closest friends. How could they do this to her? Pulling back slightly, Adana looked up at Emeka, her eyes shining with unshed tears. What do I do now? She asked, her voice small and uncertain. Emeka cupped her face in his hands, his eyes full of love and determination. Baby, we face this together, he said firmly. Those women may have been your bridesmaids, but they're not your true friends. Not if they could do this to you. Adana nodded slowly, drawing strength from Emeka's unwavering support. As the shock of the day's events began to wear off, a new resolve took its place. She had a wedding to prepare for, and she would not let anyone, not even those she had once considered her closest friends, ruin her happiness. As she left Emeka's house, her heart felt lighter, but her mind still troubled. Adana knew that the confrontation with her bridesmaids was far from over. But with Emeka by her side, she felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The drive to her parents' house, where her bridesmaids were waiting, felt unending. Adana's emotions swung widely between anger, hurt, and disbelief. How could the women she had trusted the most in the world betray her like this? As she pulled into the driveway, she saw four anxious faces peering out of her bedroom window. Taking a deep breath, Adana steeled herself for the confrontation to come. It was time to face the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Adana walked into her childhood home, her step measured and deliberate. She could hear hushed whispers coming from upstairs, her bridesmaids, no doubt, discussing what had transpired. As she climbed the stairs, a calm settled over her. The initial shock and hurt had given way to a steady determination to understand why her friends had betrayed her so deeply. She pushed open her bedroom door to find Ngozi, Chioma, Blessing, and Ifoma huddled together, their faces a mixture of anxiety and guilt. As soon as they saw her, they jumped to their feet, a barrage of questions spilling from their lips. Adana, what happened? Did you talk to Emeka? Adana held up a hand, silencing them. Her gaze swept over each of their faces, searching for any sign of remorse or shame. I think it's time we all had an honest conversation, she said, her voice quiet but firm. The bridesmaids exchanged nervous glances as Adana sat down on her bed, gesturing for them to do same. For a moment, the room was filled with a tense silence. Finally, Adana spoke. I want to know why, she said simply. Why you tried to sabotage my relationship with Emeka? Why did you lie to me? The women shifted uncomfortably, avoiding Adana's gaze. It was Ngozi who finally broke the silence, her voice trembling slightly. We, we, we thought we were protecting you, she said weakly. We heard rumors about Emeka, and we were worried. Adana cut her off, her eyes flashing. Rumors? Rumors? What rumors? The ones you made up? The bridesmaids flinched at the anger in her voice. Choma spoke up, her voice barely above a whisper. We are just trying to look out for you, Adana. We didn't want you to get hurt. Hurt? Hurt? Adana repeated, her voice rising. You didn't want me to get hurt, so you lied to me. Spied on my fiance and tried to ruin my wedding? How is that not hurting me? The room fell silent as the weight of Adana's words sank in. The bridesmaids looked at each other, guilt and shame written across their faces. The truth is, Adana continued, her voice softening slightly. Emeka wasn't cheating on me. The man in that photo was his cousin. You jumped into conclusions and nearly destroyed my happiness based on nothing but your own assumptions and jealousy. Blessing's head snapped at her last word. Jealousy? She echoed. Adana nodded, a sad smile on her face. Yes, jealousy. I have known for a long time that you all resented my success, my relationship with Emeka, but I never thought you would stoop so low as to try to sabotage my wedding. The bridesmaids sat in stunned silence, the truth of Adana's words hitting them like a physical blow. Years of pent up resentment and envy had led them to this moment, and now they were faced with the consequences of their actions. Ifoma was the first to break down, tears streaming down her face. We are sorry, Adana. We are sorry. She sobbed. We never meant to go this far. We just, we just wanted. You wanted what? Adana asked, her voice gentle but firm. To see me fail? To bring me down to your level? The women hung their heads, unable to meet Adana's gaze. The truth of their actions laid bare before them was too much for them to bear. Adana stood up, smoothing down her dress as she looked at the women she had once considered her closest friends. You know what? I think it's best if you all leave now, she said quietly. I have a wedding to prepare for, and I need to do it without the constant fear of betrayal hanging over me. The bridesmaids looked up at her, shock and hurt evident in their faces. Both of the wedding, Ngozi stammered. We are your bridesmaids. You need us. Adana shook her head, a sad smile on her face. No, I don't. What I need are true friends who support me and want me to be happy. And I realize that's not you. At least, not anymore. With those final words, Adana turned and walked out of the room, leaving her former friends to grapple with the consequences of their actions. As she made her way downstairs, Adana felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The betrayal still stung, but she knew that she had made the right decision. Her wedding day was approaching, and she was determined to face it with joy and love, surrounded by people who truly cared for her. The next morning dawned bright and clear, a perfect day for a wedding. As Adana stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her veil, she couldn't help but think about her former bridesmaids. A part of her mourned the loss of those friendships, but a larger part felt relieved. She was starting a new chapter of her life, and she would do it on her own terms. A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. Come in, she called, turning to see who it was. Her mother entered, followed by her sisters and cousins. Name, we heard what happened, her mother said softly. We are here to help you get ready, if you will have us. Tears welled up at Dana's eyes as she nodded, overwhelmed by the love and support of her family. As they bustled around her, helping her with her dress and makeup, Adana realized that she had all the support she needed right here. Meanwhile, in a small room at the back of the church, Emeka was preparing for the ceremony. As he adjusted his tie, a commotion outside caught his attention. He opened the door to find Ngozi, Chioma, Blessing, and Ifoma arguing with the bouncers, trying to gain entry to the church. Emeka's face hardened as he stepped out to confront them. I think you ladies should leave, he said firmly. You are not welcomed here. The women turned to him, their faces a mixture of guilt and desperation. Please, Blessing begged. We just want to apologize to Adana to make things right. Emeka shook his head. You have done enough damage. This is our day, and we won't let you ruin it. Please leave before I am forced to call security. As the former bridesmaids were escorted out of the church, they couldn't help but glimpse Adana through a window, radiant in her wedding gown, surrounded by her loving family. The reality of what they had lost hit them hard, and they realized that their jealousy and resentment had cost them not just a friend, but a chance of being part of something beautiful. Inside the church, Adana stood at the back, ready to walk down the aisle. As the music swelled and the doors opened, she saw Emeka waiting for her at the altar, his face full of love and adoration. In that moment, all the drama and pain of the past few days melted away. This was her day, her moment, and she would cherish it with all her heart. As Adana made her way down the aisle, her eyes locked with Emeka's. She knew that whatever challenges life might throw their way, they would face them together. And as they exchanged their vows, sealing their love with a kiss, Adana silently thanked the universe for showing her who her true friends were and leading her to this moment of pure and unadulterated happiness. The reception that followed was a joyous affair, filled with laughter, dancing, and celebration. As Adana and Emeka toured on the dance floor, lost in their own world, they didn't notice four figures watching from afar. The former bridesmaids stood outside the venue, watching the festivities through the window, the weight of jealousy heavy on their hearts. As they turned to leave, each lost in their own thoughts on how to revenge what Adana and Emeka had done to them. They made a silent vow to deal with them. And so, as Adana and Emeka drove off into the sunset, unknown to them what is about to hit them again, they were ready to start their new life together. The four women walked away from the wedding venue, ready to launch their next attack because this war is far from over.